You are about to hear from the first man who said yes to joining me in this courageous conversation, offering real value in sharing his own journey of what it took to dissolve his patriarchal pseudo-masculinity to reawaken into the whole and healed man that he is today. And I do love the part where he, a former incarcerated gang member, was so sweet to the kitten who wandered in and interrupted us momentarily. What a beautiful person and true healer this man is. I believe there are important keys within this conversation for both women and men to hear, and I wish Sonny all the success in his mission as a way shower of redemption. Welcome, everyone, to this provocative and heartfelt podcast, Beyond Patriarchal Sex, a place for both women and men to elevate ourselves, finding out what it takes to live beyond our conditioning and assumptions, not only for ourselves, but also for the coming generations. My name is Devashi Shakti, and you are warmly welcome to be part of these conversations. All right, so welcome, Sunny. And I'm so happy that you could be here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. What a blessing. Thank you so much.
And I want to start by letting you know that the first time I saw like a little snippet video on Instagram of you telling your story, of which there is a longer version, but just from the short version, a couple of minutes, it was like you reached into my heart and I just had involuntary tears coming down my face listening to how, you know, what darkness you have lived, but the fact that you have made it way out the other side and what an extraordinary human that makes you. So I knew I had to reach out to you to be part of this conversation.
I appreciate it.
Yes. So I'm going to say a little about your background from your bio. Um, Sonny Von Cleveland, am I saying that correctly? Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, so you're a renowned motivational speaker who recovered from sexual abuse and incarceration to now inspire and heal others. You're a dedicated anti-bullying advocate, collaborating with non-bullying and suicide prevention organizations. And Sunny is a sought-after mentor for disenfranchised youth, also an activist, and he has a nonprofit foundation offering complementary coaching resources and learning and you have changed your life profoundly, like truly a diamond. You've turned yourself into a diamond from all that pressure that a coal goes through to become a diamond. Like you truly are that, Sunny.
Well, it's funny when I learned about diamonds and where diamonds come from, because I was always trying to understand the concept of that, where a diamond, and diamonds come from absolute mud. They come
Mhm.
from the dirtiest, darkest places of the world, and they have to go through an intense amount of fire, and then pressure to
Yeah.
become that beautiful diamond. And it's such a wonderful correlation to what we endure as human beings because everybody has trauma and everybody endures fire and everybody undergoes pressure. And if you walk through it, you always, always come out the other side a better version of yourself. Always.
Yes. Yes. You certainly have. And not only have you walked through it and healed yourself, but what I recognized in you, which made you really stand out to me, actually, I don't know if you mind me saying this, but I can sense energetically that you didn't just heal yourself, you've returned to love itself.
100%. I was this when I was a kid, I don't remember much before my abuse started, but I was such a kind, loving child. I wanted everybody to smile, everybody to be happy. I didn't like hunting. I come from a very small country community where hunting is like a way of life. And I didn't like it because I'm like the poor deer or the poor raccoons or these poor animals, right? And I was just this soft, kind, caring kid. And we all come from love. I think every single human being is born of love. That's why babies laughing are so enticing. Like you can't help but smile and laugh when you hear the belly laughter of a baby because a baby knows nothing but pure love.
Yeah.
When it is born, it knows nothing but love. And at some point it's shattered and it's taken away and it spends the rest of its existence trying to get back to that feeling. Some people find it, some people don't, right? But
Yeah.
there is a path. And I think I've been fortunate and blessed enough to go under so much trauma and pressure to find my way back to it. And now my life's mission is to help people discover that same thing.
It is so extraordinary that you can see it like that, you know, and you're right, like there actually is a path, you know, and you are now a way shower, a lighthouse for people to walk that path for themselves, yeah.
I
Um,
try.
yeah. Yeah, so I kind of wish that everyone could see your full story like I saw it. So I'm definitely going to include that in the show notes, the link to I watched an almost an hour long version of you on video sharing your story. I'm sure there's even much more to it, of course, but you did so well, courageously and vulnerably sharing so many details. And so I'm going to zoom in on aspects of what I heard from your story and invite our listeners to zoom into those places with us
Sure.
and
Of course.
link how it contributes to the conversation on patriarchal sex, because all these moments throughout your journey, from when you were a baby, a child, a young man, and you know the lack of care that was given to you, the lack of emotional attunement really struck me, actually. I felt incredibly sad for the younger you, of course. It's just not right and it's not fair, you know, that a little one has to feel their way through all of that. And obviously, as a man, there is a little less encouragement or a lot in being in touch with your feelings, right? And if you've got to become so tough and develop this harder shell than what might be your real nature, there's got to be an impact, you know, of
Sure.
your relating capacity from all of that.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the men listening can learn from this, and also the women listening can maybe widen their compassionate hearts to understand the male experience through you a bit more as well.
Well, it's been my experience that men, we have this, it's not even a society as far as like the United States. It's globally, men have this stigma that we have to be stronger, and it takes courage to be silent and be stoic and not share our emotions. And in my experience, I've faced some of the most violent things in the world. And if I can survive that, your opinion doesn't scare me for shit. Right? Like I'm no and once you cross that threshold of being afraid of what people are going to think, it frees you. It frees you to speak. And a lot of people are like I my story and my life have been filled with trauma, but I don't have it nowhere near as bad as some people. Right? Some people's lives are just horrendously tragic, and people don't see it because they don't talk about it. Men commit suicide at an astronomical rate. And here's why. It's acceptable for women to sit on TV and and cry as a group, to sit and share emotion and trauma and bawl their eyes out together. And there's something so profoundly healing about that.
Yes.
which is why I think men and women are so different because men, you typically don't see a bunch of tough ass dudes sitting on TV crying about what's happened to them and their emotion. And it's sad that we go through that. And one of the biggest problem is the other men that make fun of or bully other men that come out and do own their emotions because most men have the ego and they're frail and so they clam up when another guy makes fun of them, but at the end of the day I don't need to impress another guy. Right? Like I'm a heterosexual male. I don't care if you don't like me. I don't need you to be attracted to me. I'm perfect. And so if you don't like the fact that I share my emotions and I heal, I don't care. Right? Because feeling that feeling of absolute inner freedom and healing is the most addictive thing I've ever felt in my life. And once you start opening up and just dumping it out, you can't shut up. And I don't care who hears it because there's one person somewhere that hears it and it saves their life. So for
Yeah.
me, it's worth all the ridicule and bullying in the world. Go for it, dude. You're not going to affect me. I've been through so much. Go for it. I'll take it so that that one person gets inspired to say, if that guy can do it, so can I. Because I don't have any special powers that nobody else has. I'm the same makeup as anybody else, right? And anybody that's listening to this, dude, you can do it. You can. It's just stop caring what people
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, you are that living example of possibility for all the men. And, I'll point out the obvious and say that anyone that's in a healed place is definitely not going to ridicule someone's healing
Facts.
journey.
Facts. Yeah, all the healed people are just like, "Amen, dude. Go get it." Absolutely, because they've been there. They feel it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the way I see it is the ones that do bully or make fun of people, of men that share their emotions, you're either too traumatized and scared to own your own stuff, or you're a potential pedophile or a predator, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
you have those predator tendencies. If you can look at a man that's bearing his soul and you laugh,
Ugh.
you're either masking pain or you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, that self-defense is covering something up for sure, isn't
Facts.
it?
That's like the only two options for me. Otherwise, you're just going to accept it. And I see a lot of guys that comment on a lot of my stuff. We've got over 20 million views on my story. And these I've seen a lot of guys that come out and say, "Dude, this inspired me, man. I feel this, I feel that." That's a real man right there. There's also those idiots that make the comments like, "This is not real. This is unbelievable. This can't happen. You must have liked it. What did you do?" Those are either hurt dudes that can't are too afraid to own it, or you're a potential predator.
Absolutely. I didn't even know that you were getting that kind of comments. And yeah,
Oh
sorry to
yeah,
hear
oh yeah.
that.
But that doesn't affect me, right? Like it doesn't. What do I care if there's some dude somewhere in the world that's on a keyboard or on a phone somewhere that's commenting about me? Like, "Oh, dude, you're such a pussy." Like, am I? I don't have a problem standing up and owning my pain and my trauma. Who's the weak one?
Yes.
It's pretty easy to be quiet. It's pretty easy to be tough and be stoic and I don't have to talk about my emotions. That's pretty easy, right? It takes way more courage to stand in front of people and say, I have been abused. I have been hurt. I've been traumatized. And I feel it and I let it out, right? And a lot of people have even come to me and said, if you have healed, then why do you cry when you tell your story?
Oh,
And I cry because when I look at it, I see this little boy who is being abused and it hurts, right? It doesn't hurt me from a victim perspective. It hurts. I would cry about it if I knew that you were abused as a little boy and I heard your story. I feel pain for the child. It's called empathy. And if people learned how to have that, it would free them so much more, right? Like it would heal
100%.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. And empathy is one of the key things that lives beyond the patriarchal structures of the world that keep people's hearts locked up, right? And are you aware of the conversation, Sonny, about some men saying that that they feel like they're being feminized, that there is this, right. And while there might be some aspects to that being true, um, I really feel like this is a really important point to differentiate this inevitable feminine reconnection inside for a man and how that's different to being feminized as such,
Sure.
right?
Sure. Well, I think again, it all boils down to ego, right? It totally boils down to ego. You are afraid of what another man is going to think about you, right? You want to impress your fellow man because you have this sometimes pseudo alpha maleism that comes in because there's a lot of wannabe alpha males that don't actually have the alpha male trait, so they are afraid to be an alpha male and they want to be but they don't know how to be because an alpha male doesn't give a shit what you think. Right? And so they own their emotions, right? They're not afraid to show it, right? They've dealt with most of their trauma. Most alpha males have dealt with it, right? And so I think for me, re- learning how to embrace the femininity of everything. We all have it, right? We all have feminine and masculine qualities, right? And so the same guys don't complain when a female learns to embrace her masculinity and becomes more of a boss woman, right? And takes on the traits of an alpha male while maintaining her femininity, right? So you don't hear men complaining about that. They like it. They're attracted to that. Well, heterosexual men. But when a man embraces the feminine, it now becomes a joke because it's a threat to their ego. Because it's something they want to do, they just don't have the courage to do it. Because crying, newsflash, feels great, right? When you're done crying, it's oh, you feel fantastic, right? Because you've let this toxicity out, and the body keeps the score, right? If you keep it in, it comes out in cancer, it comes out in diabetes, it comes out in frail bones and nerve endings and body parts failing and falling apart because your body is not designed to contain toxicity. It's meant to expel it. It's meant to push things out, right? And so when you hold all that emotion in and you don't release it, it takes its toll on your body. And it's so many dudes are afraid to embrace the feminine. Just because you embrace femininity doesn't mean you're like a woman or a transvestite or a homosexual. That doesn't mean that at all, right? It means you're an individual, right? And most dudes are just so scared of what another dude thinks of them. You're more scared of finding something out about yourself that you're afraid of, right?
Yes, totally, Sonny. And, with the work that Brene
You're-
Brown, her research has brought into the world, she's proven that courage is impossible to access without vulnerability, right?
yeah,
And so I'm aware of these conversations around masculinity and prevention of violence and things where they are doing such amazing work. But one of the points I tend to disagree on is trying to warn young men and boys away from embracing masculinity. So the way I see it is like not to shun that actually, just to prevent the misuse of it, but to understand that it's a range, and that range of masculinity is something that needs to become the new definition of it, because it's
sure.
almost like masculinity to some people has become, um, one second. The kittens just showed up.
Kitty cats.
Sometimes it's like she wants food, sometimes she just needs to be held. And it's the
That's
same
it.
now.
If people were more like cats, the world would be a better place, right? Cats are not afraid to let you know what they want, right? They're not afraid to come in and say, you know what, I'm just feeling a little vulnerable right now, and I need somebody to hold me or pet me or cuddle me and just make me feel safe. And it's unfortunate that so many men can't say that, right? Because it's been one of the most freeing things in my life to go to my wife and say, I just feel a little vulnerable right now. and I just get held, and it's amazing, right? To get the cuddle, and it's amazing. And I last time I checked, I'm not any less masculine or any weaker than any other dude, right? And so I like to put that as a point of emphasis. Just because you are vulnerable and emotional and share your stuff doesn't make you weak. I can still rock out with the best of them. I'm 6'6", 230 pounds. I'm not scared of anybody. So doesn't
Yes.
make me any less of a man, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. It makes you more of a man, and, for heterosexual women, it makes you a far more attractive man if that's the kind of man that you are.
Sure. And dudes don't understand that, right?
Yeah.
They think that they got to be this super tough macho guy, and no, like, and what world do you think that that is attractive to any female or any other dude? For if you're maybe you're gay, other gay dudes aren't attracted to that, right?
Now
And
that's an interesting point that's not spoken about very often.
yeah, it's not an attractive quality. It's a quality that lets other people know, like, you're immature, you are not vulnerable enough to embrace your emotion, you're not emotionally intelligent, you're probably unavailable, and you come with a ton of baggage. So there may be a carnal attraction for a female or a homosexual that might attract them to that tough macho masculine man, but it's carnal and instinctive at best. It's literally about a moment in time, not for a longevity purpose or a life together, right? They don't, I promise you, 99% of the time, no female is attracted to this overtly masculine dude for a lifetime that wants to build a life with them. They might internally, biological, think, man, this guy could give me strong children. And so that instinctive nature might have a carnal attraction for a moment, but she's going to go to her friends and be like, yeah, he's emotionally unavailable. I don't think he's committal. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Totally, totally.
yeah,
I hope the men and women are really listening in this because, of course, there's that primal level of attraction, but we're also emotional beings. We're also intellectual beings and spiritual beings. And someone who has their full range is the most highly attractive type of person, aren't they?
yeah. And it makes the relationship so much better when you have that type of connection with your partner, right? When you are cohesive in mind, body, spirit, soul, it's the greatest feeling in the world, right? Like it's you're just free to be you, and it empowers you to be even better because you do lose the sense of impression. Like, I have to impress other people, right? You're no longer searching because you're comfortable with who you are. And so you don't have to impress anybody anymore. Yeah, I spent most of my life trying to be this big macho gangster dude that was scary to men and attractive to women, and not one relationship ever worked out successfully, right? And,
Hmm.
and most of the time you find that she just wants you because she thinks that you're this tough badass that will protect her and give her strong children, and internally, instinctually, she thinks that.
Yes.
She may be attracted to you physically, but when the dynamic of that relationship begins to evolve emotionally, she knows that you're not who she wants to be with. This is not somebody that she wants to spend her life with, and it evolves into toxicity and arguments in a broken relationship, right?
Yes. Yes.
There's so much to be taken from the toxic masculinity that we see, right?
Yes.
Like, bro, this isn't the medieval ages, man. Like, it's not, you don't have to be tough to survive anymore, right?
Yes, yes. And so you're speaking to men that are in that place now as you say this, but in a way you used to be that man, right? And so
100%.
how was it, Sonny, in the actual experience of that, in your memory, because it's obviously so different to who you are now, but how was the perception of women? How was the perception of intimacy and sexuality when you were in that place?
It was all about self-gratification, right? It was all about conquest. It's all about ego. It was all about I want her to want me. I mean, like I didn't even like a lot of the women that I was with, I wouldn't even care about, right? Like I didn't care of like you weren't that attractive, you weren't that great, you didn't have anything to offer me. It was just it's an internal need for validation and conquest. Like, can I do it? Of course I can do it. Why can't I do it? I'm this big tough guy. Of course I can do it. And
Yes.
then once you conquer the conquest, reality hits, emotions get involved, things come in. She wants to have a discussion, and you're not comfortable enough in your own skin to be vulnerable enough to have that type of emotional connection. And then she gets defensive, and then here comes this toxicity, and the relationship begins to disintegrate because there's no emotional vulnerability or intelligence involved in this relationship. It's strictly from a physical, carnal perspective, where she thought that she could teach you to be better, to change, to be more emotional, because most women see these broken, rough, and tough guys as a conquest of their own. They see it as, I can change him, I can fix
Yeah,
him, I can show him to be better. But until he gets to a position where he realizes what empathy, compassion, forgiveness, caring, and love are, he's not going to be able to do that. So it's not a fault on her, but she will internalize that and think less of herself because she couldn't change him. So it's just toxicity from the onset, right?
totally, totally. And I've played that out as a woman in my time in the past. And I know a lot of women listening will know what it's like to be in a relationship with a man's potential.
Facts, because that's what you're in it with. And I promise you, all of my exes would probably say the same thing, right?
Mhm. Yes, yes. And if you're willing, Sonny, because you mentioned the gratification and the ego, like leading the choices there, and your behavior would come through that lens. And so, in the actual experience of sexual intimacy or sex without intimacy, we might say in this case, it's very centered on your own gratification physically as
Facts,
a man, yes?
100%. And I think there's that is a poignant delineation between men and women, right? Because I think women are obviously inherently more emotionally intelligent and emotionally involved, and the act of sex and physical attraction is not conquest for them. There's intimacy involved. It's a coming together, emotion and physical necessity and need and desire. And for young, dumb men, it's literally about, I need to get off and get this conquest. And so there is no intimacy involved. But some dudes do get it, and they get it early, right? And some you'll see it with guys that meet their high school sweetheart and are married to them for 70 years and have a beautiful relationship because they were vulnerable enough in that moment to recognize the emotional attraction to their counterpart and explored that for the rest of their lives. It's unfortunate that some men and women, it's not just dudes that do this, right? There are women that go through this, but they're just shattered and they're broken, and then they don't know how to let that veil down
Yeah.
and allow that emotional experience to take place. But once you do, man, listen, it's the most scariest and nightmarish things that you go through in life are the precursor to greatness. Right? Like it every single time I've been through something majorly traumatic, the other side of that is beauty. It's greatness. It's freedom, right? And sometimes it doesn't look like that because sometimes it's like, here's a really traumatic thing. Where's the free? Nope, here's another traumatic thing. Here's another traumatic thing, and it's just like keeps piling on. But that's just the pressure that the diamond goes under, right? And then,
Yes.
right when that trauma is over, you're like, still here, right?
Mhm. And
That's something I try to teach people. You are unbreakable. If you think about it, you have been through the worst thing the world could throw at you, and you're still here. You are unbreakable until
yes,
you choose to quit. When you choose to quit and give up, that's when you're breakable.
yes, yes. Thank you for that strong, clear message. we're talking about your story, but people listening to this don't really understand it yet. Could you give, if it's even possible, a summary of some of the things that you went through? Yes.
Well, and it's an evolving game too, right? Which is crazy because I never consulted my mother before I started to write my book. And so everything in my book was based off of my memory. And as we know, the human mind is conditioned to fill in blanks when we don't remember things. And sometimes what comes off as a memory wasn't reality. And sometimes we'll paint that picture for ourselves. The psyche has a propensity to build the picture for you to make it more digestible. And as it turns out, in my book, I thought I started to get molested at 5 years old. Turns out it was three, and which is nuts. But from the time I was three until I was 11, 12 years old, I was molested by more than five or six men. And I mean, it happened so often, it just became commonplace, right? And when I was 7 years old, I broke into a church, me and my brother, and was charged with a felony. And a small little town charged a 7 year old with a felony in 1988 for larceny from a building. And the Honorable Judge Skinner, who I just looked up and found out he's still alive, he's pushing it, but he's still there, gave me 60 days probation. And when I got put on probation, all the dudes that were molesting me left, they went away. And I can only assume it's because they don't want to mess with a kid that's in the eye of the court, like a ward of the state, that I'm dealing with probation officers and police checking in all the time. So they might have just wanted to back off. I never asked them, so I guess I don't know. But when I got off probation, it was common knowledge that I'm off, and it's like a green light, and they all came back and back to my uncle's house, back to my mom's boyfriend, back over to the friend's house, and it just kept happening. And so by the time I was 16 years old, I had like 12 felonies on my record, and the judge didn't know what to do with me. In his defense, he never asked that question, but he bound me over to adult court. And another funny thing that I figured out was the judge that sent me to prison was the same judge who I had to testify in front of when I was 10 years old about my uncle molesting me. And I just now realized that not too long ago, and I thought, wow, even that judge you knew what I had been through, and he didn't
Wow.
care. And he sent me to prison, and when I was 16 years old for 5 years, and it was really bad. Right? I had never been locked up before, never been incarcerated, so I was raped the first week I was there by two dudes at knife point. That pushed me into a life of violence. I decided to become the more violent person to protect myself from being a victim. And it worked very well. And I got ingratiated into gang life. And I thought that I was going to die in prison. I had this mentality of I'm never going to make it out of here anyway. So what does it matter? And then when I was 21, they let me out, and I didn't have any parole or probation. They gave me $75 and three condoms and said, good luck. And I mean, it was bad. I went out, and that mentality, you put that 21-year-old young man who was raised by wolves out into the world, that I had no idea how to cope. I didn't know how to get a driver's license. I didn't know how to get a credit card, pay a bill, rent a home. I didn't know anything. All I knew was gang life. And so 20 months later, I had, another 15 felonies and got sent back to prison for 12 more years. And in 2008, I found out that my brother was having an affair with the mother of my oldest son. And I mean, you have to read the book to go into all the details. But that led me to a very violent altercation that landed me going to segregation for 5 years. And that's where I met the man that changed my life. There was a guy across the hallway. We had locked at the very end of a hall, and he kept calling over, hey, white boy, hey, white boy. And he was an elderly Muslim gentleman that was a Moabite. And I eventually caved in and started talking to him, and he showed me the pathway to learning the things that I know. He sent me over Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. And The book changed my life when I read the sentence that said, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment you give it a purpose. Such is the meaning of sacrifice. And I thought, wow, like I've suffered most of my life, but I don't have to suffer anymore. It's not happening now. And I could take this suffering and give it a purpose to show other people. You don't have to walk the path that I walked in life. You don't have to do all this really hard, traumatic shit because you were victimized. You don't have to do that, right? There's an easier and much quicker path to healing and to letting it go. And you can spend the rest of your life living a fulfilled, happy existence, doing anything that you want to do in this lifetime. If you just use your voice to heal, right? And just talk. And so I committed my life to service and, finished up my time, got out, and I've been doing it pretty much ever since. I got into music when I first got out, and I kind of lost track of that path. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of came into play, and I got signed to a label very quickly and started touring the United States along the East Coast. I'm in Florida, Virginia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Detroit, doing all these shows. And I got fans all over and everything you could think of that goes along with that. And I was enticed by it. And thankfully, through all the stuff that I had been through, I had the emotional intelligence and the mental wherewithal to stop and say, wait, this is a bad path. This is going to lead to nothing. This is going to take you back down a path of pain and hurt and trauma and victimization. You don't have to do it. And so I stopped. I literally came home one day and said, I'm done doing this. And 24 hours later, my life looked completely different. And then 6 weeks later, my life was completely different from that. And then 4 years later, my life is dynamically different. And I'm living a life of purpose and doing what I believe I was meant to do in this lifetime.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of the summary.
Yes, thank you for that summary. It's a phenomenal life that you have lived. If you value the messages being shared here, please do follow and subscribe because that helps enormously to get this podcast in front of new listeners around the world. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts also helps a lot too, and I would love to hear how this episode is touching you. And may we all be free from suffering. If it's okay, I want to hone in on like three main points in your story that stand out to me. The early on, in particular, around the unbelievable negligence of the adults around you when you were little, right? Um,
It's almost a little unbelievable. Like how are you not a co-conspirator? Right. And I feel the bad side of love and empathy is that I feel bad for my mother because my mother is, she's this lonely old lady that lives in by herself in Tucson. And I still talk to her. Like she texts me, I text her back. She calls, I'll talk to her. And you don't even deserve that, right? Like, how is it possible? Like when my book went to press, we called my mother. I was laying in bed with my wife. We called my mother and we're talking about it. And I just wanted to clarify a date or something. And she said, well, you only talked about 4 guys. What about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? And I'm like, holy shit. Like our jaws just hit the floor. Like, how is it possible that your son is molested by so many dudes and you don't know? It's just,
exactly, exactly. How checked out do the adults and her need to be for that to go on? Yeah.
I don't know that it's possible. I don't, I don't think it's possible. I think it's willful negligence, right? I think it's either you were so lost in drugs and pain and trauma of your own that you didn't pay attention. It's part of this experience that we have called life. Sometimes bad things happen. Not everybody goes through it. Some people have a great life. But when it does unfortunately happen, I think it's on a mother provide a space where the child knows that the child is heard and seen and safe, right? And that's all the job of the mom is to do, right? Like, I didn't need my mom to prevent people from abusing me. I needed my mom to acknowledge that it happened and to give me a space to talk and to speak and to let my pain out and to know that it was okay instead of, well, now you done ruined the whole family. Thanks. That's a lot for a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old to take in. Like, I just destroyed the whole family because I was being raped and I said something. So what do you think I did about all the other dudes that were molested? I didn't say a thing. Right? I kept it in and I was traumatized. So, and yet, had you then isolated me from the world, I would have felt like I did something wrong and I was not worthy of being out to the world, or I was not worthy of being liked or having friends. Like, I had done something wrong. And so, again, I think for a mother in that situation, in that when it comes to that, just love your child, hug them, tell them it's not their fault, it's okay, and shut up and let the kid talk. Right? Right? Give the kid permission to talk. Give them, you are safe, you can tell me anything you want, and realize that most of the time the kid is going to be apprehensive at first, and they're not going to want to just open up and dump out because there's shame, there's guilt, there's fear. All these things exist that prevent the kid from talking, right? That stop them from talking. But the more that you create an environment that's conducive to openness and vulnerability, the easier this child is going to open up to you, because mother is the name of God on the lips and hearts of all children, right? Kids see mom as God, period. And look how many sinners there are in the world that turn their back on God. A child's going to do the same thing when he's been traumatized. He's going to act like he doesn't like you. He doesn't want you around. I'm not going to talk to you. You're stupid. You don't know anything. Mom has to be strong. And also at the same time, you have to be forgiving and kind to yourself, because this is trauma that mom didn't ask for either, right? You didn't deserve to go through this. This is pain on mom's level. Imagine you find out that your ex-husband has been molesting your child. That's traumatic. That's painful. That's, she's a part of that as well. And so be kind to yourself and understand that you're not perfect, that you're flawed, and that you deserve to heal and you deserve to have an outlet to speak to. And that's going to help you be in a position to better give that child the conducive environment to be vulnerable with as well.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was a really long-winded answer, but it's passionate for me. I'm sorry.
Yes, it's totally understandable. And for a woman in that exact situation, the very least that she could offer is emotional safety to hear you
Facts.
and hold you. Yes. And I love that you said mother is like God to a child, because we were all once physically part of her body, one being. And so when that negligence and lack of care comes from that primary caregiver attachment figure, God, to us as babies, as kids, that is a tremendous level of pain and trauma.
I think it's irreversible, right? It's a pain that can never go away, right? It's something that I'm healed of all of my trauma in my life, but it doesn't mean I don't feel it. It doesn't mean that it's not still there. It's a daily path that you walk to
Yeah.
remind yourself, right? But I will forever remember that my mother didn't love me enough. And
Yes.
it's hard to say because my mom watches everything that I put out, and I know that she's going to end up hearing it or seeing it or whatever. But it's not my responsibility to protect you, right? Like, that's not the way it works anymore, right? Like, it's not.
Yes, it's so true, Sonny. And zooming forward into this moment that you described in a lot of detail around, because I never quite heard it like this. I never quite got the male experience in this way until you described this extreme scenario that kept happening on repeat. It sounds like when you were in prison, when the pain of having to face the emotional absence of care in your life, that it sounded like, and please tell us, sounded like you would have rather felt physical extreme pain than face that emotional void.
And I did for a very long time. And so I talk about it in my book a little bit more, but the feeling, a lot of people will say they're all alone, right? Like, I have nobody in my life. And yet you're telling that to somebody, right? So somebody's listening to you complain that you have nobody. And I I think it's very few people that actually feel empty, complete emptiness. And I went through that phase where I'm sitting in solitary confinement. I'm 17, 18 years old, and there's literally not one soul on the planet that cares. If I'm alive, if I'm hungry, if I'm cold, if I'm scared, nobody, right? Like my mom's off dosed on drugs. My dad doesn't care. The rest of my family's dead. Nobody cares. It's just the most hollow feeling in the world. And feeling physical pain alleviates that. And so I would do things like cover my window up in my cell, and when the CO come by, tell them I'm about to kill myself. And they don't have a choice from a corrections officer perspective, but to open that cell door. They have to make sure you're not actually doing that because you're on their watch. So they come to the door and they tell you to take the towel down. And if you refuse, then they're going to have to go get the CERT team because you're in segregation. And they're going to have to come in and they're going to have to gas you with chemical agents. And they're going to have to open the door and they're going to have to come in and they're going to have to cell extract you. And that's what the CERT team is. It's a cell extraction response team. And so I would put these things up in my door and make them gas me all the time. If I'm standing there and they come by with mail, and I mean, you see these guys that get 7, 8, 9, 10 letters every day. Mom wrote them, dad wrote them, friends wrote them, girlfriend wrote them. And then they come by and they just blow right by your cell like you have the most contagious disease in the world. It's like it's worse than a dagger straight to the chest, right? Like it's the most hollow feeling in the world. And you're like, and you just go into this rage. And when they rush the cell and you get gas and you can't see and they're slamming on the ground and you got knees in your neck and you can't move and it's just pain, but it feels better than being empty. At least somebody knows I'm here. At least you see me and you know that I'm here because now I'm the center of all your attention. All the focus is on me, so somebody knows that I'm alive. And then comes the hollowing afterwards, right? Where they take you outside and throw you out in the dog kennel for 6 hours and you're freezing to death. And and it's the most overwhelming feeling in the world to be utterly alone, right? Because even as I'm out there laying with pepper spray and blood in my face in my boxer shorts with water thrown on me, laying in the ice and snow, I don't care because the hollow, empty feeling comes back, and it dominates all the physical pain that I'm feeling, and it's such a vicious cycle to get stuck in that you're so willing to then compromise anything that's even close to a moral standpoint or a principle-based disposition that you're willing to be whatever you need to be for attention, right?
Mm.
So that any type of attention from anybody is welcome, right? So even if you hate me and cuss me out, cool. At least you know I'm here and you know I'm alive.
I want to honor what you said, that the level of emptiness that you experience because of your journey is not maybe typical of men, but there are versions of that I know that a lot of men feel in terms of, a lot of isolation and pain and confusion and not knowing how to process their emotions. And I'm talking about strong experiences of that, not just mild ones, of course. And while not all the men listening to this are going to totally relate to, the level of emptiness maybe that you went through, um, I just feel so, so deeply touched and changed as a woman hearing that you would prefer to go through constant, extreme physical pain instead of facing that emotional pain. And I really want to pause here to invite everyone to just take that in, really digest that for a moment, take some deep breaths, because this is a level of misunderstanding between men and women that is causing a lot of unnecessary conflict.
Yeah. And then you get stuck in it. And once you go to that level, it's hard to go back because it's the reason why we don't touch fire, right? Like everybody remembers the one encounter they had with fire, right? Remember the first time you touched fire,
Yeah.
right? It's the very reason you don't touch fire because it is so utterly painful that you do anything to avoid it, right? And it's the same with that empty feeling of pure emptiness. It is so utterly painful. You will do anything to not feel it again. You'll lie, you will cheat, you will steal, you will rob, you will whatever you have to do to make sure that you never feel that again. It's the same reason why you won't run up and just grab a fire, grab a chunk of flame and just grab it, right? Because
Yeah.
you'll never willingly feel that pain again, right?
I'm so glad that you're being such a clear voice for, I'm going to say, the male experience in this, and highlighting how misattuned people can be, and I'm going to say women can be, to the male
Sure,
experience, yeah, of
sure,
because emotions are easier for us. Emotions are typically, I should say, easier for us to connect with and process. And when you've come from such a lack of care behind you in your background, and there you are trying to process what's happening to you as a young adult. And I mean, it's known in somatic psychotherapy, right, that um, of all the extreme forms of abuse, physical might be preferable, okay, to the nervous system of a young child, because they're still getting some contact, they're still getting some presence, they're still
sure,
getting attention, however horrific that may be, you know.
sure.
And I'm from Australia, and I remember hearing a story about the Indigenous people of Australia, that if someone, really transgresses the tribe, that actually neglect is the highest form of punishment.
Yeah. Ostracization?
Ostracization,
Ah,
yes,
right,
and the neglect
right.
that they would inevitably feel from that, is a high level of punishment, and that just says it all as well.
It's the same in many cultures embraced that as a form of punishment. It was the worst thing you could do to a Viking in Norse culture
Right.
was, to boot them from the land. You're not allowed, you're exiled. You're not allowed to be here anymore. And
Mm.
they would rather die. They would rather pick up an axe and fight to the death than feel that because that absolute loneliness is the single worst feeling in the world. It's horrible, right? And it leads people with unresolved trauma into being someone they wouldn't normally be to protect themselves from that feeling, right? And like I all the time with all of my relationships, pretty much up until the one I have now, was just based in lies and false perceptions and trying to create a security blanket where I knew I wouldn't be alone anymore, right? Like I never fully trusted a partner to not bail out on me because I didn't feel worthy of being someone that was capable of being loved unconditionally because it didn't register to me as a real thing, right?
Mm.
Because people talk about unconditional love, but everybody's got a breaking point. Well, if you have a breaking point, then it's not unconditional love. Unconditional doesn't have a breaking point. And so you start to analyze things like that. Those words have such heavy responsibility to them, especially to the mind of a traumatized individual, right? Because they internalize those words. And I've never studied any psychology. I've never gone to class. I don't know, never taken a college course. So I don't know the things that therapists know or psychologists knows or all these psychosomatic teachings or any. This is all everything I know is lived experience. So I don't have to have a degree that tells me how to deal with that because I lived through it. And
Yes.
there's not a doctor on the planet that's going to sit here and say, well, I've psychoanalyzed a lot of abused people. I don't care who you've psychoanalyzed. I
I
survived. I was there.
totally agree. You know, direct lived experience, there is no better teacher, there's no
Yeah.
higher authority. Yes. So that very instance in when you were in prison that we were just talking about, that ended up escalating by the sounds of things to the degree that they put you in solitary confinement for quite some time. And yes, and you this is the last point I really want to highlight, and it goes back to what we were saying at the start around developing range for you as a man, for men, and getting how essential that actually is in the real thing of masculinity. Because when you're the way that I saw it, Sonny, you're in this, you know, solitary confinement. You are in a cave, you are in the void. You in a way were given the opportunity through your mentor that you met there, through your own healing journey, obviously, it gave you the opportunity to face yourself on the inside. And if we say the interior is like the feminine, yeah, the
Yeah.
unknown, the mystery, and you had to face that profoundly. And you found your way through, you made it through to the other side. What do you have to share around? I mean, that's an initiation, truly. Yeah, you busted out of this entire patriarchal realm full of trauma and violence and extreme behavior to this place of an entirely new identity of yourself.
Well, and I see it more of a reawakening of who I was all along. I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't discover something new. I reclaimed, which is why I talk about redemption all the time. You know, redemption is a very Christianized word, and so people think that it means like being redeemed in Christ or whatever, but to redeem means to get back something that was lost, right?
Mhm.
Or to regain something. And for me, redemption was the road of regaining who I innately was as, you know, an unbroken child, as the person coming from pure love before I was broken and violated on so many levels. And you have no choice in that environment but to face it. You have two choices. You can either quit and become some institutionalized psychotic dude that's going to throw poop at everybody and spend the rest of your life going nuts in prison, or you're going to change it. You're going to realize I don't have to live this way. I don't have to. It's a choice. And anything after the problem is an excuse, right? Anything after the solution is an excuse, right? So when somebody says, yeah, but anything after but is bullshit, right? It's an excuse. I'm not saying there's not valid excuses in the world. There are plenty of valid excuses, but it's still an excuse, right? It's like saying that's there's valid fake money, right? The fake money is not valid any way you look at it. It's fake money, right? A valid excuse is an excuse at the end of the day. So when you say, I can't heal because my abuser is still alive, it's an excuse. You're saying, I won't heal because he's still alive and I'm scared. I'm afraid. Can't means you do not have the ability to, right? Won't means the ability exists, you just choose not to. And that is 99.9% of all traumatized people. You can choose to heal. You won't because of fear, because of terror, right? You have this innate sense of it's not going to happen, or some type of, it's generally fear of somebody else's opinion at the end of the day. the thing that I've come to see the most. You're just so terrified of what mom's going to say, sister, dad, uncle, somebody is going to say. At the end of the day, if you don't like your life, change it. And anything after that is an excuse. I can't because my wife lives here. Well, leave your wife. I can't because she has my kids. Well, take your kids with you. I can't because it's a mom state and she'll keep the kids. Well, then that's on them. They have to make that choice. This is your life. I'm not going to be held hostage by anybody, right? I'm going to move forward the best way that I know how. And I'm going to choose to heal first and foremost because you cannot serve from an empty cup. Right? No matter what, if you are broken and unhealed on the inside, you're literally just navigating through life based off instinct and the desire to satiate the broken part of you. Until you learn to just say to hell with it. I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I need to get this out. The biggest problem is that people that have this pain that you cannot see, you cannot physically see emotional scars, and they try to fix it with physical things. You can't do that. They try sex, drugs, alcohol, pharmaceuticals, gambling. They try all these external physical things to heal something you cannot see, when the whole time the gods have given you this thing right here that you cannot see either to heal what you cannot see. It's called a voice, and you use it and you speak what's happened to you, and it sucks. It's hard, it hurts, it's shameful, it's guilty, it's embarrassing, and it sucks to say. But the second time you do it is a little easier. The third time is a little easier. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time. And by the millionth time you have said it, it's like talking about the weather, except you are just completely free of it. And that's called healing,
Yeah.
right? It
Yes.
doesn't hurt anymore because you are healed.
Yes. How pivotal was having a mentor for you in that
Life
reawakening?
changing. 100%. I would have not done what I did if I didn't have a mentor with me, which is why I'm so big in mentorship. I think mentorship is the be all, but it's about credible mentorship, right? You don't take a 19-year-old kid that got a bachelor's degree 3 years early in his life, so he's now a qualified specialist in trauma recovery. That dude's not going to qualify. Give me the guy that was stabbed, raped, broken, beaten, and abused. Give me that guy, because that guy knows where I've been. That guy's walked a path that I've walked before, and I've got something to learn from that guy, and I might be able to teach him something as well. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of credible mentorship, right? You don't see an 18-year-old leading an AA meeting, right? Like they just don't do it. You have to have somebody that's walked through there so that the relatability is there, and that factor that you've been there. And I think that's why I resonate so well with trauma informed people, is because that I've been there. There's a lot of people that will look at my life and my story and accuse me of lying. I don't believe you. That never happened. Who convicts a 7-year-old of a felony? This is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But people that have been through it, there's something there and they know it, right? Like we just relate. It's a relatability factor, right?
Yes, yes. And I really want to honor the terrifying journey that it must have been to really face your feelings on the inside and get your masculine strength behind that, to the degree that you didn't care anymore what anyone thought of you. You faced that darkness, you faced yourself, you faced all of your shadows, you faced all of that pain that you were going to great lengths to avoid having to feel before. And it's like you pierced through something that actually returned you to love itself, like I was saying at the start. And that's so, so, so profound, Sonny.
So
And I
you
want to
got to
have
feel it to heal it, man.
Yes, got to feel it to heal it. And that to me is another way of saying you got to develop that range as a man. You have an inner feminine and it is extraordinarily powerful. And it takes
Super powerful.
true courage to actually connect with it. Yeah.
And I think it's the verbiage. I think it's the word, right? And it's again, it results back to ego. But if you were to rephrase the word, like, and put it in tough guy terms, like, I don't know, there's this really badass thing that you can do with your voice, and you talk about the shit that's been bothering you, man, and you like, I think more men might go to it, but because we call it feminine, we call it this innate feminine nature, it naturally puts the dudes off because of their ego. They're I ain't feminine. I ain't feminine. It's funny though, if you ask a dude what his nails look like, 90% of them are like, which are they do this, right? Which is what women do. And so next time, try it. Next time you guys are out, anybody that's listening to this, ask your friend, dude, are your nails clean? Most women do this. They look at the back of their nails. Most masculine dudes do this, right? They're like, try it. And then you can tell if somebody's a little more feminine than they are masculine, right? And don't
That's
make fun of them if they do that. You just embrace it.
That's funny. I'll try. And it doesn't, it's not like my approach is saying men have to embrace feminine like that. It's more
Yeah.
what's beyond patriarchy, actually, what's beyond this assumed role that you should have to project to be seen as masculine. And it inevitably is about embracing that inner nature.
Yeah.
It could be called feminine. That makes you a far more attractive and whole person, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, and it's at the end of the day, it's freeing, right? Like, I can't tell people enough how light you feel, how much freer you are, right? To be freed of all that. And at the end of the day, you just don't care what anybody thinks about you. I don't care if dudes think I'm weak anymore. Like, I don't care, bro. Like, you don't pay my bills. You're not cuddling me at night, no matter how much you wish you were. You know, that what do I care if you think I'm weak or if you think I'm feminine? Like, I don't care. Right? If you look at the amount of lives that you save, that people are inspired by it, like, dude, that trumps everything, man. To get a message from somebody that was uh, just sick of life and felt like they were at the end and was about to off themselves, and like, your videos pulled me back, man. Thank you. It's worth everything that I have been through. I would do it twice
Oh
to
my God.
save that soul, right? Because everybody's life matters and you're worth your life, right?
Well, you have such a truly noble heart to say that. And I'm so happy that all these young people, young men especially, can look to you as an example, as opposed to these, um, aggressively patriarchal, over masculine guys who have so much funding behind them.
It's like the Wes Watsons of the world. Like, they just drive me nuts, right? When you see these, like Wes Watson in particular, right, coming out of I'm so tough and this big old hulking dude with tattoos all over. I was a shot caller in prison. Here's the thing. Most of us that did really hard time in prison, did an extensive amount of time, or had a very violent experience, we're humble, we're quiet, we're grateful for freedom. We're so grateful to be able to walk out. I don't have to prove anything to anybody because I know what I've been through, and I'm past that. And so it's guys like Wes Watson that did very soft time and saw all the really tough convicts and got out and now are trying to monetize the cool guy that was in prison and be tough. And they do so much more damage than they do good, because young boys that have been traumatized see these assholes and they're like, ah, that's what I have to be. And now this young man is going to leave a trail of trauma and abuse behind him for who knows how long, until he comes to a culmination point where he gets healed. He's going to destroy so many things behind him. And they don't realize the damage that they're doing. And it's unfortunately, human nature loves drama, right? People love to see trauma and abuse and pain because it lets them know they're not alone, right?
Mm.
Innately, they're attracted to it because they haven't dealt with that. Like, I don't like watching babies get thrown off of cliffs and animals being abused, and watching fight videos and prison stab videos. And I don't enjoy watching that shit. Like, who watches that? And it's people that are scared or hurt or stuck in a broken life, and seeing this content lets them know that they're not alone.
Mm.
right? And they're too scared to face the reality of being an emotionally vulnerable person.
Totally. Yeah, there is that addiction to drama and also for people in quite strongly impactful, influential positions, putting profit before caring about humanity. Yeah. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I've mentioned your story, which is available for free on YouTube on that great channel, Soft Underbelly, which I think are doing brilliant work to make more empathy and compassion in people.
Thanks.
And your book really is going to tell your story. So I want to direct our listeners to getting your book. And you're starting your own podcast, or you have already started, yeah?
So, yeah, well, it turns out it's not really going to be a podcast. I was going to do a podcast.
Okay.
I enjoy podcasting. I wasted a bunch of money on all these expensive microphones, and I wanted to do something really profound in my life. I've never done anything by myself. And after doing 18 years in prison, I got out when I was 35 years old. I was married. That relationship lasted about 6 months, but I jumped right into another relationship with a not so nice person. And then right after that relationship was over, I met my wife that I'm with now, and I've never done anything by myself. And so we were just in Europe for about a month, and my wife actually had the idea of you need to go on a trip by yourself and just go see what's out there, right? Like go heal people because you can do this. And so I'm doing these 22 cities. I've decided to go to 22 cities from around the world, just do this big loop. And I've already started the Breaking the Silence series, which is on my new YouTube channel, Conversations of Redemption. And I'm going to do this show that ties the pain of the cities that I go to. Every city has pain and trauma into the construction of that city. And somebody that lived there that has that pain and that trauma and correlate, just like that city still standing there, it's this person still standing here, right? And so everything in this lifetime has trauma, it has abuse, it has pain, and we can all persevere. And so I got contacted by some producers that said, don't do that as a podcast, do that as a show. Because there's possibly we could get it syndicated and reach more people. And we might be able to get some really good numbers in there, and more people need to see that. And
Mm.
that's my goal. I'm now going to do it as a show, just me, my dog, and my cameras in my car, and hitting the road.
Oh my gosh, amazing, amazing. So if everyone listening wants to support you and your work in some way, how should they follow you or find you in your mission
Yeah.
there?
You can come subscribe to my YouTube channel, the new one, and I'm trying to get I just deleted my other YouTube channel. I had 14,000 followers, subscribers on there. And I worked pretty hard at that channel. And I just deleted it. I'm like, you know what? Your new life costs you your old one all the time. So I'm going to start anew and do something with purpose and meaning. And so I started this new channel. So they can come subscribe to that. Order my book, Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption. It's available on Barnes and Nobles. It's available on Amazon. And just follow me on Instagram. That helps too. Instagram, TikTok. I mean, we're really getting the message out there, and I think it's really starting to resonate with people. And so sharing is so huge. You never know who in your sphere might need to hear something I said that morning that could be the impetus that changes their life. And so it's just a click, right? It's two clicks. It's share and share, right? Like it's a small thing to do to help somebody you might not even know, right?
100%, 100%. And everyone listening, if something you heard in this podcast is something you know needs to be heard by someone in your network, please do share it. And thank you so much, Sonny, for
Of
being
course.
such a beautiful example of healed masculine energy in this world.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to help. Shout out to all my Aussies, man. I got so many Australian friends. It's not even funny.
That's
I love
beautiful.
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sonny. I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode. feel free to let me know in the review. And if you've not yet taken the survey, please consider being part of our research in this way. It doesn't take long to answer, and it will ask you to reflect on your experiences while giving you the chance to express yourself. Your honest responses about your personal experiences of patriarchal sex and relating are recorded anonymously, and this contributes to research that reveals the exact ways that men and women can find more harmony together. Sharing the survey can also be a great conversation starter with friends, your partner, and even family. The Patriarchal Sex Research Survey can be found at my website, thetigresspath.com/book.